Hey Ariella, how you doing?
Hi, good. How are you?
Oh, very good. Good to see you,
Good to
guys.
see you too.
Before we start, I have a little a little rant I have to do very shortly. So Boston, we put up the clip of the Tony Huge thing with the Red Con and Arnold just an hour ago, and there's so many weird comments. I got to respond to two things. First thing is, a lot of people remember how I said like Nazis were controlling and didn't give liberty and stuff, and so did the communists. Bunch of people are like, no, Nazis are left wing. So I know, boss, you might not be interested in this, but I just want to mention briefly to people. I'm not going to go into all the details. Left and right came from the French Revolution. Left people generally wanted people to be equal. It was egalitarian, or basically everyone was supposed to have equal rights. On the right side, it was based actually where people sat in the whatever their political house was. On the right side, they were the people that supported the aristocracy. What's the major difference? The right gave certain people more power than other people. Now the Nazis, it's true, the word Nazi is National Socialist, but it's National Socialist. Only the German, original German people had the rights. For example, you can look at what they did to the Jews. Not only that, but if anybody has any more complaints about this, consider who were Hitler's supporters. Mussolini, Franco, and who did they fight? The Nazis, before they even got into power, used to fight the communists in the streets. They used to literally get bats and beat them on the streets. So just for everyone to know, the Nazis were right, even though it's socialist, because it's not completely socialist, it's not communist. That's not that important, but I was just shocked because, guys, if you don't know about something, I'm just talking to the audience, don't comment because you might mislead other people. Go read. Like, I've read like 15, 20 books on the Nazis. I was just curious about them. I've done the same about communists. I don't know better than you guys, but what I'm saying is, if you write something that's wrong, you might mislead somebody else. Think before you write. Read before you talk. You know what I mean? Second thing that really annoyed me is, these guys, man, whenever somebody disagrees with your political opinion these days, especially I notice honestly from the left, and I'm not like very partisan, but what they always say is laughing my ass off at the end of every comment. LMAO, like they're laughing. You're not laughing, bro. You're pissed off. That's why you're writing that comment, you bitch. And the second thing is, they don't just say that, they always say, what an embarrassment. What are we doing here to embarrass you? We don't give a shit about you. What the hell are you talking about embarrassment? I don't give a shit. Keep that to yourself. And what else? They're just passive aggressive, man. Just be direct.
There's this thing going on Instagram. What are people commenting on Instagram? Y'all are tweaking. That's what the liberals are saying.
Is that is that a liberal thing? I saw that too.
I was like, I don't even know how that started. It was just randomly on all these comments, and I loaded the comments, and it was like, it didn't miss a beat. It was just like dozens and dozens of comments, and I'm like, how? Like, what? Like, what's going on? Like,
well, I mean, the point is, we don't want to argue with everyone. We want everyone to be united, and we want to be able, if we have a disagreement, I can respect your opinion, you know? I don't disrespect the opinion of the people that want everybody to be vaccinated. I respect your opinion. Just let me have my opinion too, and we could talk and we could respect each other. But tell me you're laughing your ass off. You're not laughing your ass off. I know you're not. Don't just act like, just be yourself. Anyway, sorry guys, I had to say all of this. So, Ariella, it's so great to have you back on the show. I had such a good time last time. I learned a lot. So we have a bunch of questions, but before we do, I want to ask you questions from myself. Did you watch the Shelby Starnes thing that we did? Did you get to see it?
I did not know. I've heard a lot about it from Bostin, and he'll show me messages he gets from people and what people are saying. But no, I've not seen the.
But she knows that for years I've been talking about Shelby Starnes.
What does it freak you? Like, do those diuretic protocols and the really high cleanse, like they used, if I remember correctly, 180 micrograms of T3.
Yeah, the
200 micrograms.
Something that I didn't mess with high dosage wise. I really didn't like myself personally taking more than 40 micrograms. I didn't like how I felt on it. And just hearing in general, I mean, diuretics, the drugs, everything. I mean, I thought that I pushed it. But like seeing what some of these girls take, now I feel like my old cycles were really moderate, like very, very mild, because I would never take more than 20 mgs of Anavar a day. That was like max. I would never run Anavar for longer than 6 to 8 weeks. I would never run oral Winstrol for longer than 3 to 4 weeks at 5 to 10 mgs a day. And if I didn't feel good on something after a few weeks, I would just come right off. I mean, so seeing all these protocols, I know these girls are getting ready for big shows, and I mean, they look way better than I ever did, but still it's like it comes at a cost, you know? So the protocols are just mind boggling. The diuretic protocols are mind boggling. So I'd never taken more than like a little bit of hydrochloric thiazide. But that's it.
No way. You didn't even use aldactone.
I actually have once with one trainer. It was with PJ Braun back in 2013. But he was a very, very mild like person when it came to drugs and anything when it came to like females. I think the only thing I was on for that show was like Novadex. He took me off of like basically everything I was on before because I was on so much from that previous coach. Remember the coach we were talking about before? Yeah. So I went to PJ right after him and he was like, oh God, I'm just going to take you off everything and try to get you ready for the show if I can. So he was pretty moderate. I don't remember the dosages, but I felt fine. I was still drinking a lot of water leading up to the show. I didn't cramp up. I mean, I felt fine. So I don't really have experience with like a high diuretic type thing.
Can I ask you both something then? Since we've learning about these crazy coaches that coach females, who are the good coaches that coach females or that have good reputations of being careful? Do you guys know some that specialize in females but that are moderate?
A few of them that come off the top of my head. Nelson Jones, and there's actually three of them. Nelson Jones, Trey Hodge, and who's it?
You would know of them more than I would. I mean,
Johnny Castellano.
Interesting. That's very helpful. I think that'll help the audience. And what do you make, Ariella, of a coach that chooses mainly a male coach that chooses mainly to coach females? Do you find that odd, or do you know why? I mean, Bostin and I talked about it before, but what do you think of the intentions with that?
We had talked about this before, me and Bostin, and he had mentioned, I don't know if it's because women can be easier manipulated or told what to do, or they'll go to the extremes. I honestly really don't know. I do think it's weird. I think if you're a coach and you're great at what you do, you should coach everybody, like men, women, people who compete, people who don't compete. Like that's what you do. I understand that it's their choice to, do strictly competitors or whatever, but I do think it is a little strange.
Okay, the last question from me. I don't want to monopolize the questions, but the last one from me, I was curious if you have other friends who are females that used steroids, but then I know you're going to compete again one day, but some that maybe stopped competing completely for a few years. Do you notice that they regret it? Like specifically in terms of like hair loss or, you don't have so many permanent effects yourself, but some of them probably do. Do they ever confide in you that they regret it or are they okay with it?
Me and one of my good friends, we kind of joke about some of the side effects that we've gotten. But we never talk about regretting it. We'll kind of just like joke back and forth about our man voices or our beards. We kind of go like over the top with it and we'll just make fun of each other and joke about it, but it's all in good fun. And we never have said that we regret it because we really enjoyed training together. And she's probably the one that I confided in with the most and vice versa. The other people I knew that competed, they had never told me that they regretted it. There's only a few of them, but no, they never told me that they regretted it.
You know what's interesting?
Girls I wasn't friends with that had told me that they messed themselves up and they regretted it, but not so much my close friends.
Oh, really interesting. You know what's interesting, Bostin? Some female bodybuilder, just forgetting her name, sent me a picture. Apparently, I guess it was in the Ariella podcast that I mentioned. I noticed sometimes, I saw this at the Arnold when I saw some female bodybuilders up close. They have this little like pouch here. It looks like a muscle thing, but you could see it from the side, like it comes down.
You mentioned it last time.
Yeah, I mentioned it, right? So a lady sent me a picture of someone who just won a show. I wanted to repost it, but I don't want to embarrass the lady. And I tried to black out her eyes, but you can still see where she is. But it's really there. That is a real thing. So I would want to mention to people, like, okay, let's get to the questions. So first of all, we'll do a funny one by Dejwick. By the way, this guy invited me to be on his podcast. I just want to apologize. I usually don't go on other people's podcasts, but he said, Ariella, what annoys you most about Bostin?
Yeah, I like that comment. I thought that it was pretty funny. Honestly, it's nothing like major. It's just little things like he's lazy and he knows he's lazy. So if he takes off, say he's getting ready to shower and he takes off his clothes, wherever they fall, they stay. And if I don't pick him up and the next day he showers and he takes his clothes off, they just lay right there. And I'm just like, sometimes I'll look at him and I'm like, really? Like you couldn't just pick him up and put him in the hamper? But it's small stuff. It's nothing that we ever argue over because I think when you're in a serious relationship, you got to pick and choose your battles. And I'm not going to I'm not going to get mad at something so like so simple, but it's small stuff. Like if he opens up a container and you got to take the cotton out and the plastic, that just stays on the counter. And then I have to kind of put it away. So it's like stuff like that. He's just a little lazy and a little messy, but I kind of make up because I like to be organized and clean. So I kind of just...
I wish Lucy was here so that she could complain about me, but she's with the baby and she can't leave the baby alone. But I'll tell you one really annoying thing I do. So this is like way worse. So I don't wash dishes. But the reason why, I have a reason. My wife was always like, there's so many dishes, they're piling up in the sink. Why don't you ever do... And I explained to her, like, if we weren't married, I would use the same dish and I would eat with that dish and go wash it after. That's what I used to do. I don't like get bunches of dishes. But after we started, she used different dishes. So I'm like, I put them there, but I'm not going to go wash all the dishes at once. It's so much work. And then your hands get dry and all this kind of hectic stuff. And I don't know how to use a dishwasher. I wash by my hand and I do it like really slowly. So it takes me like an hour. So I just anyway, it's ridiculous. But anyway, I out myself for that.
Leo, I used to just use paper plates when I was single.
Oh, I've done that too. That's way more efficient. Yeah, this is hectic with all these dishes. Okay, and your buddy Nicholas De Pietro says, for both Ariella and Bostin, what hormones most affected your libido negatively and positively? I'm very curious how this works for women. I wonder if all the androgens positively affect your libido, or do you not notice some of them?
Yeah, no, all of them, I would say, positively affected, like sex desire. I can't remember, like if you're, well, when I was no, we still had sex when I was prepping. So
yeah,
I don't.
Yeah, we still, because you're cheating on your diet.
I was still getting the calories in, Leo. That's why. No, I can't remember a time. I mean, if I was like dieting really hard, even on the androgens I was, and on DNP and like doing the cardio, I think I'd be too drained. But that's like other factors into it. As far as like an off season, everything I would only take NPP or Primo in my off season, and then like I said, I would add either Winstrol or Anavar on and off. And my sex drive was always, nothing affected it negatively for me at least.
Would you guys say Primo tabs, like oral Primo acetate as well as Anavar, are the two safest maybe beginning things for women to use in the off season?
Yeah. I had never taken Primo acetate.
I have a bunch safer though.
But he has a bunch safe for me, so I'm like really excited because I've never taken them before.
Bostin, nothing affects your libido negatively, right?
Well, like when I was in the very beginning of my steroid use, like in the very beginning, I got a sex drive increase, like in the very, very beginning, like when I was 17, when I started with pro hormones. But after you take steroids for a certain amount, at least in my experience, you just kind of balance out, like, you know what I mean? Like my cycles, it's not like I took a certain drug and I was like crazy horny or anything like that. But even when I had 71 test levels, Leo, I didn't have a crazy sex drive, but I mean, it was still there. You know what I mean? Like I could still get hard. So I've never had issues with that.
Some guys will have issues if they add Deca or Tren in when they have higher estrogen, like when they're using tests. I do, for example. It's like horrible. Like I have no sex drive.
Yeah, so I always make sure my test is like double the Deca or double the MPP. So I've never really had much issues with that.
Okay, so O'Brien Lift says, thoughts on diuretics paired with birth control, like aldactone, while a woman's on birth control. He says pros and cons. Have you ever used birth control while taking these kind of things?
I have not. No. When I was on steroids, it was basically for like on and off, but for like years at a time. So I would cycle on, cycle off, cycle. I don't think I ever was on birth control. I think that I just used the drugs as
exactly
birth control. So when people ask about that, like Anavar birth control and all that, I would say that it would have some type of counter effect, because when you're taking a birth control, depending on the brand, you're going to be taking estrogen or progesterone, and that's supposed to change something in your body that's supposed to help the sperm from, swimming up, and it's supposed to help you internally, right? So if you're taking all these other things that may counteract your hormones that you're supposed to be taking from the Anavar, that you're supposed to be taking from the birth control, I think that it can definitely have a counter effect. So I think people should kind of use, if they don't want to get pregnant, they should use double protection, because we don't really know. There's no studies on birth control and Anavar and all this, but when you're taking something that's going to mess with your hormones this way, and then you're taking the hormones in another way, I think it should definitely could counteract.
Don't most women lose their period though when they're taking androgens?
Yeah, so that's why. Well, for people who are like more mild, because I've heard of girls who take Anavar and they got pregnant and they had to come off, or they were just starting a cycle or they're still getting their period or they're spotting. For me, I never did an Anavar only cycle. It was always something a little like the injectables. So I never got my period. There was a time where I didn't get my period for like 2 years. And then when I went with PJ and he took me off of everything, it took me about 2 or 3 months off of everything completely. Then I finally got my period again. But I never worried about it for those few years. So for women who are like higher in body fat, still hormonally balanced, still getting their period, and they just add Anavar, I think that's kind of risky. But like for the women who are on like all this other crap, I don't think they need to worry about that because they're not going to be ovulating. I highly doubt it.
A side question on that: Do you hear most women get their period back when they stop, and pretty quickly, like within 3 to 6 months?
For me, every time I've came off for 3 months, it took about 3 months. That's usually when I would get it. So if I came off completely for 3 months, because usually I would cycle off for about 2 months and I would never get it, then I'd get back on. So for 3 months, I think that was the amount of time that it took to like clean my body out and get regulated, get my hormones balanced, and then I would get it. I would assume, I haven't talked to many, like there's a few other friends that have competed that have been regular again. I'm not sure how long it had taken them. But as far as I'm concerned, they've balanced out. A
side point on this, because he's asking about diuretics. What I notice is when women go on estradiol or progestogen, because in the US they don't use progesterone for birth control. They do in France, by the way, and other places. They use micronized progesterone, but in the US they use progestogens, which, by the way, for the audience to know, if you have any girlfriends that are using them, they're associated with cancer. Progestogens. If they just use estradiol, much safer. But I wanted to comment on the fact that you probably notice for the audience, if your girlfriend's on birth control, her breasts will usually enlarge a little bit and she'll be holding a little bit more water. The reason is they overdosed the estradiol compared to her natural estradiol. So that she'll be holding more water. By the way, actually on this topic, I just made a video on how I was trying to figure out why bodybuilders, when they go on airplanes, they sometimes hold more water afterwards. And one of the side effects of being on airplanes, or the dangers, is getting what's called thrombotic veins, which is when veins like get stuck. And it's interesting, women on birth control have 14 times the risk of getting a thrombotic vein in a flight. 14 times. So that's because of the massive change in estradiol. Okay, moving on. Patrick Mihan says, was Ariella exposed to any people trying to force insane diuretic protocols to contest prepper? You weren't, except the first guy, which wasn't a diuretic thing, right? He was just using a lot of androgens?
Yeah, just a lot of androgens. Diuretics, I don't even remember. If so, it was very mild, because I don't remember ever feeling like how some of these females were feeling leading up to a show or on show day. I didn't feel like that. I still felt fine. Of course, I was thirsty and dehydrated, but no, as far as I can remember, I never had any coach push any crazy diuretic protocols on me.
Y7ESTII says, your thoughts on addiction to steroids. How hard was it for both of you to take a cruise or PCT, or is addiction not a real thing?
I think in a roundabout way, you can be addicted to steroids, but I think it's because you're addicted to the look that it gives you and the feeling of it. So yeah, I think you can be addicted. I don't think it can be like a physical addiction, but
the mental obsession.
Yeah, more of like, oh, I'm obsessed with the pump in the gym. I'm obsessed with my muscles feeling fuller, the veins, the fat loss, the muscle gain. I think it can. It's a great feeling to feel that way. So I totally can see why people can be addicted to that. And it was hard for me to go from being muscular to just kind of like normal looking. When we were trying for kids, it was hard for me initially, but I had the goal. I just wanted to be pregnant so bad. I wanted to have a little boy, little girl. Then when I finally got pregnant, I was like, oh, I don't even care. But over time, it definitely was a big transition. So because for years you're used to getting looks and comments everywhere you go. And then you kind of go from that to just like no comments, and you're just like an average person. And it feels weird. Mm-hmm. It feels weird to kind of make that transition. But now I'm totally used to it. I think now Bostin is in that transition of not being as into it as much. But he actually just told me yesterday, he's like, I'm dealing with it way better than I thought that I ever would. I think that's because he's a dad and he's busy with work and stuff. But yeah, I do think that it can for sure be addicting, and the transition at first was like a little hard. But when you have another goal in mind, I think that's what makes it a little easier.
Now, update us on. So, do you guys want to? Obviously, you're doing it naturally, so you don't know if it's going to be a boy or a girl. But do you guys want a boy or a girl next?
She wants a girl, so I want what she wants. So, girl, I guess.
You want a girl?
Well, honestly, I would be happy. Of course, I'd be happy with either. But because Bostin wants two, it would be nice to have a girl, you know, boy and a girl. And I'm curious to see what they would look like too, because Jackson's like a little mini me. So if I were to have a girl, would it be like a me again? Would it be like a little mini me, or would it be look totally different and be like Bostin? So, I mean, I'm curious too, but I mean, I'd be happy with either, but if I had to choose, I would say probably a little girl. You know,
your children have more DNA from you than Bostin. There's women give more DNA to the child. It's not 50-50 because there's mitochondrial DNA also. And not only that, but also the baby's in your womb. So it lives in your environment and its epigenetics get affected by the hormonal environment there. So unfortunately, Bostin, we give less DNA to the children, which is good for me because
you'll have to see when your baby gets older who she, like, you'll see who she has more.
No, I already know. She has nothing from me except her ears and her feet. Everything else is so she's like blonde. The only reason I say feet is because my wife's first toe is longer than her second toe. You know, some people have mine is the reverse. So that's the only thing she has from me. She has blue eyes and like dark, dirty blonde hair, which is great. I'm so happy that she doesn't look like me. All right. So, by the way, are you guys considering doing artificial insemination if it continues being difficult? Have you thought of it?
Talked about it like years ago.
Is it the in vitro?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I heard you get to pick the sex or the.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, you could pick and you could get two.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems a little like I like the whole idea that it kind of just like happens. Like we get Jackson, and he just was one out of many. Like just the chance of getting Jackson was like just crazy. The odds of that he's going to look the way he looks. I don't know. I just like the fact that it's by chance, and that's just like what your body and his body, like everything is just kind of happens. Like I understand if people have like infertility issues for years, I totally respect them doing that. Maybe down the road, but I would kind of like to just do it naturally.
And I don't think we'll have any issues except if the only reason we'd have issues, Leo, is if the kidneys.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
The doctor said that it doesn't affect fertility, but I think it might, because all my fertility clients that I have, they always get their wives pregnant within the first 1 to 3 months, always. Mm-hmm. So like even when they stay on their cycles, they don't come off the gear. So it's like, I don't know. We'll see. I'm back on the HCG and HMG, so we'll see.
So I have a video coming out. Someone asked, "Will HCG make your child short?" Which is not the right question, but IVF does affect the health of your child. It makes your child less healthy later in life. Yeah, it's very interesting. So I have a video coming out on that. Okay, so Mika asks, "Who wears the pants in the house?" I know it's Ariella, but I just want to see what she's going to say. It's Ariella because the reason why Bostin records at midnight every time, I think, is because he spends all day with you and he doesn't want to leave any moment alone. Okay. So I know it's Ariella.
Okay, but Leo, that's because he goes to bed at like 6 a.m, right? So I get up anywhere from 9 to 10. Now I get up later because I stay up with him because he's been getting up later. So his day is shorter. So I have to like push my bedtime just to spend more time with him. So I'll wake up, I'll take care of the dogs, Jackson. I kind of do my thing. I clean the house. I do whatever needs to be done. He'll wake up like today. He woke up earlier, which was around 2. But some days he'll wake up at like 3:30. So then our day doesn't start together until probably sometimes 4 or 5-ish. So if he were to do a podcast like midday, I'd be like, okay, well, that's taken away from our time. And since he's already up from like 12 to 6 a.m., just do it that time. So he doesn't want to take away from our time.
You guys are like really best friends, huh? You hang out and talk all day
all day. Like, Leo, if I get up to go to the bathroom while we're watching something or just hanging out, he's like, are you coming back? And vice versa, he gets up and I'm like, where are you going? And he's like, I'm just going to pee. I'm like, you're coming back, right? And he's like, yeah. And like, it's crazy because we'll be together all day. And even when he gets up just for a few minutes, I'm like, are you coming back? Like, I really never get sick of him. And I've had that issue with boyfriends in the past. I just get sick of them. Like, I can't last. I mean, I never lived with any of them, but I couldn't even last hanging out with them really for like days at a time. I'd kind of get sick of them and need my space. But I don't know. It's just, we just kind of are like the same person almost now that we've spent so much time together. We're just like, we have some of the same traits, and I rub off on him and he rubs off on me. And it's just so easy to just hang out with him all day.
That's true. You know, I actually didn't talk to you since the birth of my daughter. When my wife was in the hospital, and she was scared, you know, she was scared about the C-section. The C-section is not dangerous, but she never had a surgery before, and she was scared about it. I was so worried about her, because she was scared of it, that I was so extremely worried. I like argued with everybody there. And when it turned out that she didn't need it, I started crying. I told Bostin this, but I wasn't crying about my baby. I was crying because I was so relieved that my wife didn't have to do, because she was scared about it. And then I realized, wow, this is the biggest gift in life, to have somebody that you love that much. I would never worry about myself like that, you know? But, and also we're the same way. We're always together, and always, she's like my best friend. We talk about everything. I talk about things that bore her, but she pretends to be interested, like about politics or whatever, you know? Anyway, so actually before we leave that, someone asked, what your advice is on maintaining a long lasting relationship. I think we talked about this last time. I think you were saying honesty.
Yeah. Honesty, respect, just, I don't know, like you have to make sure, and everyone says it, but you really have to make sure that you're just like good friends first, that you really respect them as on a friendship level, because you would never betray or want to lie to your best friend, right? So if you kind of see your significant other as being also a good friend and a close friend, you kind of will have that same respect that you would and loyalty as you would to a friend. Obviously it goes further, but I think basically just transparency, honesty. I mean, I'm trying to think of what we have in our relationship. You know what I think? You know what I think a lot of people do wrong? I think a lot of people start dating just because of the sexual attraction, and they don't like think beyond that. And then they end up in this kind of like possessive, jealous relationship where when it goes away, because if you're with somebody for 2 years, at the end of that, you're not looking at that sexual thing. You look at the real person. Yeah. And you have to like that real person. You can't just be into them sexually, right? I think that's what it was for me too, is I told him that like, because when you're together for so long, it's unconditional. Nothing that he does, like I still stare at him. Like even the other day, I'll just stare at him while we're watching something, and I'm just like, damn, like he's so fucking sexy, right? I still think that now, okay? Nothing that he does or has done ever turns me off from him. But from previous relationships, if a guy were to like just fart in front of me, I would, in my head, I'm like, this is disgusting. He's disgusting. He's gross. I don't want to talk to him anymore. Like, it was weird. Like, I don't know. I was just weird. Like, but like with him, it's just like, I don't care. I think you just have to, that's when I think you know if it's like lust or if it's just you're actually into somebody. Because if you're actually into somebody, you know, all that gross stuff kind of just like, all right, whatever, I'm really into you for you. But when you're just into somebody, whether it's sexually or, you know, like on that level, then once they start to kind of like do those gross things, you're like, like my like for you doesn't go this far. So I think that's what it was for me. So for him, it's just so different. And it's the only time I've actually experienced that with any guy, which has been with Bostin. So it's definitely very different.
How did your relationship change? Sorry, I keep asking my own questions, but how did your relationship change when Bostin stopped like posting as much online and was less active? Because he was like he still is, but he had a lot of celebrity for the first few years, and then he intentionally on his own like hid out in Florida and didn't post as much. Did your relationship change the way you guys, when you go out, people come up to you? Did it change the way you guys interact with each other? Did it change the way you think of him, or did it not change that much? Do you still go out and everybody comes up to him? Oh, like people still come up to him. Because he's one of the most famous people in America, actually. Like if you think about it, really, genuinely, yeah, it's weird. People still come up to him. So we have this joke where after somebody comes up to him and they like leave, I'll be like, "Oh my God, you're Bostin Lloyd from YouTube." So I always say that to him, and he's like, "Babe, stop." And I'm like, "Oh, but you're Bostin Lloyd from YouTube." This thing that I just can't make fun of him because everybody will come up to him and be like, "Oh my God, are you?" And they actually say that. They're like, "Are you Bostin Lloyd?" And then he's like really laid back. And once people meet him in person, I mean, they notice that he's a really nice, humble guy. But I guess it's changed slightly over the years, but he still gets people coming up to him and asking him. But Leo, it's significantly less. I'll tell you, like if I go to the powerhouse in Tampa, which is Bodybuilder Central, when I was like
posting a lot, and like I had my Instagram that had a bunch of followers before I got before they canceled me out. It would be hard to get a workout at some of these main gyms because of people like wanting to talk to me and like take photos and stuff. Now I don't get that, so I'm so glad about that too, because it's not that I'm not social, but when I go to the gym, I want to train. You know what I mean? So it's definitely a good thing.
Yeah, they don't respect it. They come in the middle of the set too.
In the middle of your fucking set, like literally while you're mid rep.
Yeah, you're bigger in person. That's what they've been telling me now. I don't like it. But hey, you know what's funny? Gred Ducette got canceled from Instagram yesterday.
Did he really?
Yeah, like he had I think for hundreds of thousands, he got removed.
That's what he's moving on.
I know Instagram is shameless. They just cancel. They don't even give you a reason.
What's going to happen with his account? Is he going to have to try to fight it to get it back?
I don't think he can. It's not even like on a 1 month ban like Lee Priest. His is like it's gone.
Vegan Gains got his back.
He got his YouTube back, not Instagram.
Wait, Greg, you said got Instagram. I thought you meant he got his YouTube taken off.
No, Instagram. Apparently, YouTube you can like fight it, but Instagram apparently is deadly.
I've gotten a lot of warnings recently on YouTube on my Instagram. I got to be careful. They'll probably cancel me out soon.
Apparently, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying he gets warnings on Instagram, but he barely even posts now, which is kind of like.
Apparently, they're being very harsh on anything regarding steroids. So if you mention, which it's not going to be good for Bostin, but Tony Huge also lost his account yesterday. Also,
Instagram?
Yeah. He has like 3 though, but he lost one of them yesterday.
I got to be careful.
Jeez.
So Punished Loaf says, with no explanation whatsoever, but he says, first cycle for my girlfriend. So let's imagine that this is a person that's not competitive, that wants to gain some muscle. What would you think she should do for her first cycle if we don't know anything else about her?
God, that's so hard. Because usually with those, you want to ask, okay, how are you training? How are you eating? Like, there's all these questions you have to ask.
Can't really go into details.
Yeah,
but the safest androgens we were saying are the Primotabs and the Anavar, right?
Yeah, if they were to if he were to skip Sarms altogether, so like no Osterine or any of that, and go straight to, because I would probably recommend Sarms first.
Yeah, we have questions about those. Yeah.
Okay.
So Big West 240 says, do you use SARMs and peptides with females who want to stay feminine but want muscle and to burn fat? And let's expand on that. Which SARMs? Is it like Osterine, the go-to, the safest thing?
Yeah, actually, we were just talking about this yesterday in the car. Like what SARMs you could stack for somebody that's trying to gain a little bit of muscle and lose a little bit of fat. So we would say Osterine, Stenabolic, and Cardarine. Those were the 3, right? That we were talking about.
Well, the good stack would be, they're not necessarily SARMs, but the Osterine, the SR, and the GW.
Oh, the SR. Yeah. Interesting. You guys notice something from the SR is just supposed to wake you up. I mean, it does affect fat burning, but it's supposed to put your circadian rhythm in the morning phase. I'm surprised it has any other effect. Okay, so this is an interesting question. Axilla says, what were some of the side effects on Ariella from taking tests, for example, but not regarding body changes like voice deepening, etc., but more so characteristic changes such as being more happy or angry or things like that? We obviously know about the horny thing because of the last episode with her. But does it change your confidence as a woman to take androgens?
Confidence, no, but like anger, yes. We had spoken about this because I'm like, Bostin calms me down a lot. So I've been calmer over the years, but before I met him, I was kind of like, anyone who knew me before, I was pretty aggressive and I was like a hothead. I would get really mad. And I think it was more so just from like insecurities. That was the first thing I would go to, is just like, if I felt like I was made a fool of, or just put in a situation where I just felt like insecure, I wanted to act out. It was just anger was the first thing I would do, And now it's different. But back then when I was taking testosterone, that makes that like trait worse. And Bostin had stated this before, that it doesn't make you a different person. It just brings out the traits that you already have. So for me, I was already kind of like an angry person and like a hothead. And then you add in testosterone, and like, I just remember, I'll never forget going to the gym one night. I don't know why I was so angry. And one of the gyms I think had closed early, or I had to get out of work late, and I was just like pissed off. I was going into the gym and I remember being mad for just no reason. And I was like frustrated that I was mad. I think it was just the frustrations from other little things. And like, you're just, I don't know. I just remember just having like tension, and you're at the gym and you're just, I mean, maybe it's different for a female because you're taking something that's just, you know, significantly increasing your testosterone, which your body's not used to. But I just remember being so angry at certain times. Like you don't really have a limit. It's just like, bam, you can go from like 0 to 10. You get mad at little things. So it definitely did change that way. And I think he even noticed too.
I think that's why a lot of those fitness chicks are nuts, Leo. I think the steroids really fuck with those chicks' heads.
Yeah,
for sure.
I think mentally, yeah, it definitely does. I think mess with some stuff mentally too.
So I have a question. And knowing that Bostin, and our audience knows this now. So Bostin critiques people harshly sometimes, but in a bodybuilding sense, and he does it in a joking way. And sometimes people will do it back to him, and he's very cool with it. He doesn't get upset. But sometimes people go too far, like Phil Viz, that piece of shit, and recently. And when other people go too far, I'm protective of my friends more than I am of myself. Like if you insult me, it's okay, but if you insult my wife or someone else, I can get very angry. So I got a little bit angry about it, and I noticed he's completely relaxed. He doesn't care about what Phil did. I'm curious, do you get protective as well, or do you get angry at being that you're hot-headed already?
Yeah, so I would I've calmed down because I used to always get worked up at people's comments. I'd be like, oh, this fucking asshole just said this about you. He's like, babe, that's like a nobody. Who is he? He's nobody. It's funny. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like I just want to be like, fuck you. Like, I just want to write back and then and I used to a lot more too. I used to respond to these like trolls and like go back and forth with them. And then I would get more heated at their comments. And then meanwhile, Bostin is just like laughing about it. And he's like, babe, why do you even take the time to do that? So over time, I've gotten to the point where I can read a comment and just like roll my eyes, or we just laugh about it. But initially part of me does want to still comment, like just a little bit, just to kind of put my 2 cents in. Like, I think it's more towards people, not so much about physique stuff, but it's more towards people who like think they know Bostin as a person and think that he's this asshole. And I'm like, look, Bostin never makes like personal jabs at people unless they deserve it or they're like just a piece of shit. It's mostly just bodybuilding related. Okay. And it's a lot of the times his opinions are what people are thinking. They just don't have the balls to say, but he always kind of keeps it like light and fun. Like, oh, you're soft on stage. Oh, this and that. Like you're really going to get mad that like you literally compete to be judged by people on stage. So somebody is judging you online with their opinion and you're getting butthurt about it. And then people attack him in a personal way, like mention his health or him as a person. And that frustrates me because they just don't know him. So if they're like, oh, Bostin, you know, you don't have a pro card, or like people have made comments like that towards him, I'm like, all right, whatever. But when they start talking about him as a person, I think that's what still will get me angry, because I'm like, you're making all these accusations. You don't even know him. You've never met him. You've never spoke to him, you know? So I think that still frustrates me to this day.
But see, at that point, I'm like, wow, these people care so much about me to like try to get me to bite. Like, I don't know. That kind of stuff never has bothered me. You know, the online stuff, it's never bothered me.
No, never.
He's zen. He's like, I wish I could. Huh?
I'll never forget the time that I think you had made a comment about Evan Centopani years ago.
Maybe.
Or like Evan Centopani didn't like him for some reason. And there was like some type of tiff there. And we were at the Connecticut Powerhouse, and Bostin just went up to him and like shook his hand.
No, he wouldn't shake my hand.
You went up to
I went up to shake his hand, but he wouldn't shake my hand.
No way.
Okay, but then at the end of it, though, you guys were talking.
Yeah, we ended up talking, but
yeah.
I mean, that's fine. Like that's like people get so bothered by that stuff, but I'm not. I don't know, like the stuff with a mean threatening my health and talking about my like. I look at him like I feel bad for a mean. Like he's just like, you know what I mean? Like it does. Like I don't really. It doesn't. Now that one time where Adam McVie, there's this guy on Facebook, and he ended up blocking me. Everyone knows who he is. He ended up talking shit about her, and I went off and I trolled his ass.
He's an ass and he just makes dumb comments, but someone had posted on my Facebook, some girl asking about synthol in her glutes. And I had commented back, and basically I said, I don't know about synthol in the glutes. I've heard that people do it, but just make sure if you do, just like do your research, because like you don't want to mess yourself up. So it's basically like, I haven't heard of it. Just be careful. You know, like I wouldn't like, you know, mess with that. And Adam makes a Facebook status saying that I am advising bikini girls to like shoot their glutes with synthol. It was something so I'm like ridiculous. I'm like, Adam, the post is literally on my page. They're like, you can see the interaction. Like none of that fucking happened. And then we're going back and forth and making comments. And so then he made some dig about me. And then that's when Bostin got mad. So Bostin,
he called her like a dude or something. And he
was calling me Eric. He had this joke where he would call me Eric, like, oh, your wife or your husband, Eric. Like he kept making digs at me for being like.
So, dude, I completely fucking wrecked this dude on a post. I put a before and out. I put a side by side of Ariella next to his wife.
Good job.
It got like over 1,000 comments, and like, dude, he was so pissed. He ended up blocking me. It was so funny.
He was like, take it down. He was having all his people.
He was having all of his buddies report the post, and it's still Leo to this day. It's still up.
That's a very good response. People don't know where the boundaries lie. Like you can troll people, but you shouldn't be talking about someone's family. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But that's funny stuff. Okay, so we talked about the Sarm thing. Villegas Bullies said, what pregnancy protocol did you guys use and what are Leo's thoughts on it? We shouldn't talk about the protocol directly because Bostin sells the protocol. I have bought the protocol from Bostin myself. So this isn't some like, it does work. The protocol is very effective for men. And the protocol for women could be a little bit different. I think we talked about it a bit last time, but it's a very effective protocol. If you guys want to buy it, you should buy it from Bostin and support him. Okay, so Tristan Franken says, if a girl really enjoys lifting and wants to pack on some more muscle by using drugs, which ones are they able to run without any masculinization side effects and up to which doses? All I can think of is clenbuterol. Anything that's not androgenic, right? So they could use growth hormone, insulin.
I wouldn't even think of clenbuterol if somebody were
Cardarine.
I would think of, he said to pack on the muscle without like the side effects. Is that what
without the masculinization? That's the only side effect he's talking about.
Insulin and growth hormone.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you could probably add in small doses of like 5 to 10 mg of Anavar, and then because like.
Well, they're saying no anabolics.
Are they
right?
saying absolutely no?
They didn't say that. They just said without masculinization, without the side effects.
You can add in like very, very low doses of Anavar to start, and then just see. I always tell, anytime I had a girl come to me with advice asking, I always just say start off very small and see what results you can get with that, and then increase. There's no need to start higher when you could get results from lower with lower side effects, and then just slowly increase. So I would say 5 to 10 mgs. And if you're not feeling what you want, then you can slowly increase it and then slowly increase it. And then if you don't like the side effects, just come right off, because it's a drug that you're only on for. Yeah,
it's very short acting.
Yeah, very short acting that you could just come off.
Now, would a girl lose her period, do you think, usually at 5 milligrams, or might stay?
I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't.
Some girls won't lose it.
I think as long as their body fat is higher, Leo, I think they would still have their period.
Yeah, because I've heard of a few girls that, like I said before, that were on Anavar or small cycles and they found out they were pregnant and they got off. And in my head, I'm like, that's crazy. I think it's just because they weren't like competitors. And I think as someone's like first cycle, if they're just taking that, I don't think it would mess with that. But I guess that depends on like body fat, how lean they were, everything else.
Leo, if I think a lot of girls were smarter and a lot of coaches were more knowledgeable, like, let's say if a girl comes to a coach and they're like, listen, I don't want to masculinize, like my femininity means everything to me. I really think peptides are very, very, very like your go-to. Like, I think a girl could build a very good physique off a little bit of growth hormone and insulin timed properly with the proper nutrients and some like IGF. I think these kind of hormones will obviously not touch their masculinity at all, and they could stay feminine with getting really good results with muscle fullness, some tissue gain, but staying lean, like HGH fragment, even regular growth hormone. I think if a chick wanted to stay away from that, even with the peptides out these days, they could be very smart about it.
Bostin, I've used IGF-1 LR3 before, and we talked about it with Tony. When I used it, I felt it almost felt like using insulin. Like I became, right? Feels like that, right?
You nice, full look,
yeah.
It is. It's very similar to an insulin, result-wise for sure. Now, the combination of those is what I would use. You know what I mean? Something like IGF pre with insulin post.
But how do you avoid that adaptation? Because once I used IGF-1 LR3 for like a week straight, it barely worked anymore.
Yeah, so you could do it. You could do it a few different ways. I have my clients do 4 weeks on, 2 weeks off, or you only take it like 3 days a week. But you're right. There's two things you could do. You could either you could either start really low on the dose and slowly titrate up, or you could start at a baseline dose and only run it a few times a week. I like to start low and raise every 2 weeks and then come off completely.
Okay, Hector Bogart says, what are their thoughts on monogamy and being, this is after Tony Huge interview, and being sexually exclusive with only one person for the majority of their life?
So we've talked about this before, even before like we saw that comment.
You saw that comment.
100% am for monogamy, being with Bostin. That's it. Like, I have no problem with staying faithful to him. Like, I don't know. I like admire people who could be monogamous with somebody and, 30 years down the road, I've been with your father for the last whatever years. Like, I think that, that's sweet. And I am all for that. But people who are like, we know some people in the bodybuilding community.
Dude, swinging is very, very more.
It's very common.
More common than you think.
Really? That's interesting.
Like, even one of his friends in Rhode Island, used to
I would consider him my best friend.
One of Boston's
he was a swinger. They would go to swinger parties and all that shit.
He would tell us like crazy stories about having and we're like, damn, like that's crazy. Like, it's interesting.
Very interesting.
But we're like, okay, like we could never, because it's like, I don't know, those people, like, it's hard for me to put myself in their shoes to be able to allow somebody else to like have sex with your significant other while you're like there. Like, yeah. I think when you're like watching porn and like that stuff that's like totally different and you're like, oh yeah, like I like that. Like I like watching that. But like, I don't want that in like my household. Like, I want to watch it and then turn it off and then that's it. But I don't want that like in our relationship. So that's what it's like for me. And we've talked about that before. Like,
yeah, we've heard a few swinger stories from people that we never even imagined.
Crazy stories of just, everybody has their own rules, it seems, but like just the husband just watching the dude like fuck his wife and then just like,
that's a little different. That's called cuckolding or something.
But swinging it like not just
all four of them.
Yeah.
So I've noticed something about these people. I had a few friends who did this, and what I noticed common, it seems to be usually the guy will initiate it. The guy will be like, because he wants to sleep with other girls. So he'll be like, I'm okay with you doing it too, so we go together. But then what usually happens, the girl starts to get into it, and it's almost always the same thing. The girl gets feelings for one of the other guys, and the relationship usually, once they start swinging, it takes like 3 years, and it's over. It's very interesting. I don't know if you notice this.
We've always said that that's the type of thing that it can never last. It's not.
I would be lying. Like we've talked about, like it's a funny thought. Like it's a cool thought because that's the type of porn I watch. We talked about that, and it could never work, and it would never work.
Leo, to fulfill his fantasy, I bought a massive, thick black dildo without another guy.
It's like 8 inches by it's really wide.
It's really big. Because, all right, Leo, he's been making jokes for like years. Oh, I want to fuck you with a black dildo. I'm like, so buy one. Okay. But like, he never has. And time goes by. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go to the store.
You bought it.
It was called like Big Black D or some shit.
Yeah. It's one of his favorite
It has like
ones.
veins in it and everything.
Yeah, it's one of the like soft feels. Because I'm like, you know what? I think I'd actually rather pick it out because I'm the one that's going to be,
Because you remember, Leo, we did that podcast and everyone was loving it because I said what everyone does, but they don't want to say is they like blacks on blondes and shit.
Yeah, I don't. I really dislike it. I really dislike. Really upsets me, actually, to be honest with you. It upsets me because it's like, why are they always black? Why don't they find one? I don't understand why it has to be that. It's like such a stereotype. Probably true, but like still, it's a crazy stereotype. Anyway, I don't watch that stuff. I'm shocked that Boston's watching it and enjoying it because you can't. How are you going to compete with that? You can't. But he doesn't.
I like that kind of stuff. I don't know because like it is a fantasy. Like just because you don't do it and it's a no-no in your relationship and it would completely fuck things up. It is a fantasy, but it's like you could fulfill it with toys and shit. You know what I mean?
That's true. Yeah, I think when guys probably, you know what? If there are some swingers listening to, I bet there are. People should comment below. I want to learn their stories. Yeah, and tell us if it didn't harm your relationship. If your relationship was okay afterwards.
All the swingers I know, Leo, that it's been affected in some way.
Right? Yeah, that's what I always hear. Exactly. So Shroff Zyker says, we might not know the answer to this, but what female powerlifters and strong women use as PEDs, especially Rhiannon Lovelace? She must be on trend. She deadlifted 600 pounds at 63 kg body weight as a female. Holy shit. Do you guys know this woman?
No,
I don't. But that's nuts. So that's a crazy thing.
There's this famous one though that's gonna fight. You know Hafthor Bjornsson, the strong. There's a fight, right? There's a female in the card. What's her name? Yeah, Eddie Hall ripped his bicep. Now he's fighting Devon Larratt, the arm wrestler.
They're fighting. Both
Devon Larratt is fighting Hafthor.
He's gonna get killed.
No, Devon is a murderer. Devon was a special forces leader from Canada. He's done like 50 tours. He's like an actual trained assassin.
Do you think he'll win?
No, I don't know if he'll win if it's a boxing match because he can't extend his arms fully because of arm wrestling. So his reach is fucked. But if it was like an MMA fight, he would win for sure. Like he's a deadly guy. Like there's so many legends about him. But anyway, on that same card, there's a woman fighting. I forgot her name. She's a South American powerlifter, but she's pretty cool too. I can't remember her name, man. But anyway, do you guys know anything about what women take?
Is this coming up soon?
Yeah, in a few months. Yeah.
Oh, we can buy a pay-per-view, right? I'm definitely buying it.
Yeah. I'm forgetting that lady. Her name is Cohen. Stefi Cohen.
Oh, she knows her.
She's
fighting also.
Oh.
Who's she fighting?
Some other, I don't know, obviously a lady, but I don't know who the other lady is. But yeah, so you know her personally?
No. I see her stuff on social media, and I know she posts a lot of like informative stuff about just the body, so I can totally respect that. She's not just like a meathead. Like she's actually really smart and she's really strong. So I don't know her personally, but I can respect.
We'll definitely have to get those fights then.
Yeah,
are you going to get those fights?
Yeah, of course I'm going to watch it. Of course. Yeah. I'll text you while it's going on. But so you're very powerful yourself. But I'm joking. But do you know what they take? These strong women? Do you know anything about?
Her best friend was dated. Well, yeah, you know most of it, right? What they're using. Well, that's more powerlifting though.
That was more. Well, that's what he's asking.
Oh,
or
yeah.
Strong woman or strong.
Yeah, both. He asked about both.
I remember. Well, even you have given people advice what to take right before a meet, and it would be like stuff like TNE and all that.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
Yeah,
That's
I know on people like that because I've had people. I have a powerlifter that I'm working with now that I'm getting him ready for meet, and it's funny because he's like, dude, my physique has never looked this good before. Like he's like, not only am I the strongest I've ever been, because dude, a lot of these guys don't focus on their nutrition; they just eat a bunch of junk. You know what I mean?
That's true. Actually, TNE is really smart for a female because it won't last long in her body.
Yeah, I had her.
I used to take TNE just before
TNE
like
and Halo.
lifts. Yeah, that shit. I mean,
Smart.
that was when I deadlifted like 225 for 12 or 14 or something.
You remember Leo?
I had taken half a cc.
Yeah, something
TNE
like
or something
that.
before my lift.
And you remember, like, I made a post, like, in a contest prep, you never want to keep a chick on these drugs, like Tren, Halo, fuck that. But if you do it literally like 1 hour, like one time a year, 1 hour prior to a meet, it's not going to fuck with them. It's just going to jack their, like you said, their adrenaline and their aggression up.
Yeah.
That's true. Even potentially longer term, as long as it's like a very short ester like TNE, it comes in and out of the system. You could maybe do it 3 times a week, and it might not. I don't know. I'm just speculating.
Yeah, not often,
It's
but like
once a week, maybe.
If he was like, "Hey, you're doing back or legs. Do you want to take something?" Or "Oh, you're doing bent or like whatever," and I was like, "Yeah, sure."
And it
like,
wouldn't be much. It wouldn't be much.
It wouldn't
I think
be
it was like
much.
25 milligrams.
It was small. It wasn't much, but
Hey, is that a good aphrodisiac for a woman, TNE? Like, because it's short acting. I wonder, is it not long enough to change libido?
I don't remember that. Yeah.
Honestly,
Interesting.
I can't remember.
So this guy's name I can't pronounce, ZXNMB. So he says to Ariella, have you used HGH and was it a game changer in terms of putting on size?
Yeah, I'm actually on HGH now, and I have been for a while. Even before too, that's something that I think was always kind of in the mix. As far as game changer, I mean, I guess, but like everything else goes into.
How does it affect women compared to like when men take HGH, their glycogen, the muscle gets round. Does it happen to women too the same way?
it's hard to tell now because like I'm so soft. I was training though, and I was consistent with training like a year or so ago. And I was just on growth. It's crazy the muscle memory that came back in that short time period just from doing training like 4 or 5 times a week and like 20 minutes of cardio in the morning or not even cardio some days. It's like crazy. So that's what I think made me so motivated to eventually get back on stuff. Cause I'm like, if I can do this with just growth and just consistent training and my muscle memory is coming back, and just taking that, I mean, it felt weird to feel like natty. I know being on growth isn't like natural, but it felt natural for me compared to like what I used to take, and just having to rely on like good old supplements, like pre-workouts. Like I couldn't take insulin or anything before, everything was just really basic. So having to rely on basic supplements, I mean, it was like crazy going back to that. I would say maybe, I don't know, a game changer. Would you say it's a game changer?
I wouldn't. She's never ran, Leo. She's never ran a high enough dose to even consider that. She's only ran like 2 IU's max.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's why. I guess so.
Yeah, really, I wouldn't really say game changer, but it is like a great thing to add in. And anytime, somebody asks about it, if they have the money for it and they can be consistent with it, I say, yeah, go for it.
Hey, we should comment on that. Bostin, where do you see the dose of GH on men when does it have diminishing marginal returns? Like so some people, a lot of people are popularizing the idea that all the doses are exaggerated or whatever. You don't need high doses, but there is a I've tried higher doses. There's a difference how you look between 4 units and 8 units.
I'd say 8. I'd say between 8 and 10. And then after that, well, according to Bo, and a lot of people that use growth, the more the merrier. I'm going to do a GH experiment because that's the only thing I can do when I get back in the gym. I got anabolic pharmacist. He's going to hook. I'm going to get an order from him. And I'm going to run. I've never done this because I'm a cheap motherfucker. I'm going to run pharmaceutical grade at a high dose for like 3 months straight, just farm grade, because he's going to hook me up with an awesome price. And I'll be able to do it. And I'm going to see if there's a big difference between pharma and generic, because I've used pharma and I've used generic and I can't see a difference. But I don't know, anything over 8 IUs, I just think I just kind of bloated more for me. At least.
Too much bloat, right? The heart, you start to get that like breathing stuff and all that at 10 or 15. But yeah. Oh, he also wanted to ask, did you notice a major difference between Sarms and like Anavar and have you ever used Turinabol, T-ball?
No, but a lot of girls are using that. It's crazy that I
I've never
that.
even used like Austrian.
She hasn't used the Sarms yet. We have them saved for when she's not pregnant.
Because for when, like, after I get pregnant, have our baby, I'm done breastfeeding and I'm like good to go and just have fun with stuff. I definitely we were talking about it yesterday. I want to start slow with because basically I'm so cleaned out now. It's like I'll be starting all over. So I could start off with the Sarms and then slowly go back to Anavar and the Primo tabs and just slowly work my way up. But I had never taken Sarms because I don't even think they were that like popular back then, or
no, they weren't
know
popular.
About it.
Like in 2013, 14, nobody was using them.
No, so it was just basically, I don't even think I took T-ball at all.
By the way, that's true, Ariella. I hadn't used steroids for 3 years, and when I started using HCG and FSH, I started with a 400 milligram test. I thought I was going to use like replacement testosterone. Back in the day, for me, like TRT was 400 milligrams. So I injected 400. I had way too much of a sex drive. It was killing me. I was really getting in the way of my work. So I injected it twice and stopped. And then now I've been just using pre-workout androgens like 3 times a week, and I grow. This would never have happened to me before. I wouldn't have even reacted to it. I'm so sensitive to it now. So that's really
Anadrol, right?
Injectable Anadrol or Anavar or injectable DHB sometimes.
Okay.
I switch between them.
That one stings, huh?
Yeah, ma'am. As I told you, I'm suspicious about these things. I need to go check out my kidneys. I don't know about all these like
that's
solvents.
The worst drug I've ever taken pain-wise is DHB base.
No, I think the worst is the Anadrol.
Oh no! Well, you probably have never used DHB.
You talking about Juice Pals DHB?
No, this was from a different company. It was called DHB base, not just regular DHB, but like DHB suspension, dude.
Oh,
that shit fucked me up so hard.
Like you can't use the muscle at all. Huh?
Like nothing. It's just knotted and hard. Yeah. Way worse. It's the worst.
Oh my god. Okay, so Wait, these questions are more for us. Okay, so Pipe says the last question okay, he wants to ask about your dad and bolasterone. Do you know what that is?
Oh, my dad, bolasterone. Yeah, that's we got to get my dad on this podcast, dude. It'll get so, because he's so interesting with that shit. Bolasterone was his favorite drug, and he would probably know what was in it. I think it was parabolin, Anavar, and Test-Prop all in one, and they would do a shot every other day. And I've started to look this stuff up online. It's called bolasterone. I think it's Bolasterone. And that was his pre-contest drug, but that was his favorite. Like that was what their go-to was back then.
Okay, the last question we have for Ariella is, did you modify your training when taking PEDs? If so, why and how did it impact your results? I remember you said in the last podcast you could rep pull-ups with a 45-pound plate. Absolutely insane. That really is insane and very powerful.
Actually, Leo, you have to add in the powerful.
It's true.
Actually, when I was doing that, I was natural. I wasn't on anything yet. That was when I was probably...
What?
Yeah.
Holy crap, you're strong.
There might be a few people. There's actually a few people on my Instagram that could verify that, because they were there. Leo, do you remember when I told you I asked that guy for a spot?
Yeah.
At the gym, and then I was like, I didn't need a spot. So this was at the same time. This is before I got on anything, before I ever competed, before I ever thought of competing. And I used to train with him, and he had some other guy friends at the gym that would train together. And I used to do pull-ups so consistently that they just became just so easy. I could just grab anything and pull up. So I'm like, you know what? We started with a 25, and then we used to do different grips too on the, like, you'd throw like the close grip or the rope or whatever. And then I got up to a 45. I can't remember how much I used to pull that with. It was like at least a couple, but I was not on anything at this time. When I started taking stuff, of course, I mean, my strength went up. I don't even remember if I even did weighted pull-ups. I know I did weighted dips. I can't remember weighted pull-ups, but significantly, I mean, you could definitely change your training, because you're just like, you pick up weights, and it almost feels too light to even like warm up with. Like for chest or for shoulders, like I wouldn't even touch 25s to warm. Like to me, it just felt so. Now that's like my working set. Like if I were to do that's like 25s, but I used to not even warm up with those, because you're just, at least for me, I just felt so strong with everything that I could just keep increasing each week. So it definitely changes your training. Even if you didn't want your training to change, you kind of have to change your training, because you're going to keep getting stronger. And if you want to keep growing, you got to keep upping the weight, you know?
Do you have brothers?
Yes, I have 3.
How tall are your brothers?
5'11", 6.
Yeah.
So Jackson's going to be tall and powerful.
He doesn't have any full brothers, though.
I have 3 half brothers, 1 half sister. I'm the only one from my mom and dad, because they had but we kind of all grew up like together. So I say that the one that's probably the closest to my genetics would be my dad's son on our dad's side, because my dad has really strong genes. So probably him. And actually he'll get into the gym, and his body will change in just a few months. Like he has no body fat. He'll just put on muscle.
They have very similar body types.
Yeah. But like, we always talk like, oh, I wonder if you had like a full brother or sister, what they would look like if they were to consistently train at the gym, and how strong they would be. So yeah, I wonder that too, but I guess we'll never know.
Yeah. Bostin, you hit the genetic lottery. You found your soulmate, and she's powerful, and your brothers are not short, and you're tall.
Every time I look at Jackson when we go swimming, like when he's at the pool now, like he's lean as hell, Leo. He has nothing on him.
It's insane. I've never seen a toddler have like
abs,
better calf insertions than I do. I mean, his little cat, like they're so round and meaty, and
his waist, I could wrap my hands around his waist too.
It's insane. I don't even know. And he eats whatever he wants. I feed him. He eats healthy and snacks. So he eats both good and bad, but he doesn't put like an ounce of fat on them. It's crazy.
When my daughter was born, she had, I was in the room and I was like, Lucy, she has shoulder muscles that are visible. But my wife thought I was making it up. But then like the next couple of days, she paid attention. Literally, she has like protruding delts that come out like this. I don't know how it happened. It's not my genetics.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Were you on any gear when you knocked your wife up?
No, I wasn't on anything.
Oh, you weren't? Okay.
No, yeah, it should have been like, yeah, it shouldn't have, but she's muscular. You can see her quads too. It's very interesting. I don't know if it's just because it might be fat. Maybe I'm imagining all of it. But listen, I'll ask you a couple more questions because Bostin, honestly, we have like 80 questions that we skipped. So I'm just going to ask you a couple more just for Bostin because some are interesting. So one of them was, so Steve89 said, did Bostin always have an entrepreneur mindset or did he just fall into it? And following that, Dylan Rosler said, for Bostin, what do you think the best way to make money in bodybuilding is? From what I see, some of the most successful bodybuilders like Chris Bumstead make most of their money from social media or sponsorships. Do you think the days of just winning shows being enough are over and that the only way to make a decent living off bodybuilding is just social media? Thank you all for the great podcast.
Yeah, unless you're doing multiple shows a year and you're winning shows like the Olympia and the Arnold, obviously you got to do more than just compete, right? So social media is your number one outlet, obviously. Without social media, back in the 80s and the 90s when there was no social media, the bodybuilders made their money on sponsorships and prize money. So now that social media is there, you don't even have to be a good bodybuilder. You just have to capture people's interests. People have to trust you. And I honestly got lucky. One of my videos went viral, and people trusted me and they know that I'm not going to lie to them. And they know that I'm the go-to person if they want real advice. So that worked out for me in my way. But what was the first question?
It was, what, did you have an entrepreneurial mindset? Because, not everybody, like you started companies early, but they weren't like commercial. It was sort of like a group.
Yeah, I started young. I never started like my company where it was like besides my training company, obviously. But obviously, I always had like partners and people that helped me, and I was mainly the promoter or the sourcer. But yeah, I mean, I just got really good opportunities in life, man. I'm never that one person that's like, I worked so hard my whole life for what I had. I had really good opportunities come my way, and I took advantage of them. You know what I mean? That's it.
Ariella, is he driven to make money or does he not think about money that much?
He doesn't.
Yeah, I know he doesn't, does he? I thought so. Exactly. He doesn't really have an I feel like it came to him.
If he were like single and had nothing else to worry about, he would probably put more of himself into making money because he had nothing else to do. But because he's like a dad and a family man now, he doesn't really worry about it that much.
Yeah, I always think there's always ways to make money, Leo. Like, if I wanted to make more money, I could, but that's never a thing of mine. Like, I'm not thinking about that. Like, as long as we have enough money in the bank to support a house, support a kid, support the family, like, I'm fine. I would rather work way less and spend more time with them than do other shit and make a ton of money. And you know what I mean? There's no way. There's no way I would do that.
Hey, I have a question, Ariella. When Jackson was young, did he sleep a lot? Like when he was my baby's age, did you get to sleep, or what was your situation?
No. So Leo, the first few weeks, okay, I'd always wanted numerous kids, and that first few weeks we were home, I wondered how people had more than one child and how people wanted more than one child, because I was like, I can't sleep because every hour or not even 2 hours that he's waking up, he's crying. Sometimes he doesn't want the bottle. I was like, oh my God, how am I functioning on such little sleep? And then after a while, you're kind of like, okay, you get into this rhythm, but he really didn't nap or sleep longer than like 15, 20, maybe 30 minutes. And then just when I thought that I could sleep, because they always say sleep when the baby sleeps, just when I thought I could get a nap in, he would be up every single time, Leo. Every time I thought I could get a nap in, he was up. And I was like, oh my God, great. So I didn't get that much sleep, but now I think is the age where they do little naps. They don't really sleep that long, at least for Jackson. He didn't sleep that long, maybe an hour or two here and there. And he was breastfeeding a lot. Like, is your wife breastfeeding, Leo?
Yeah, but right now, apparently 3 weeks in, there's some kind of growth spurt for like 2 days. I don't know what the hell it is, but the last 2 days she has not. My poor wife has a crazy sleep deficit, and the thing is, my daughter doesn't really want me to feed her that much. She doesn't like me as much as my wife, so like I can't even.
The same way with
for sure. That's
Bostin.
normal.
That's normal.
Yeah, so she's been eating every 45 minutes for 2 days now.
Yeah. At first Bostin was like, you're breastfeeding all day. And I'm like, that's because he wants it all. Like,
how do people have 2 kids that are like 1 year apart? Like you're breastfeeding 2 kids. I don't even understand. It's crazy.
I know.
Yeah, if anyone has advice, please tell us down below, because I really don't know what I'm doing. It's very confusing.
No, It gets better. It gets better. You'll get sleep. There's a time where you will get sleep again. Don't worry. Especially your wife. Tell your wife that it's just really hard these first few months. That's like the hardest, I would say, especially if you're breastfeeding. It gets better.
Okay, we'll do one last interesting one. David Lamam says the second question he has is about the Texas Pro and Logan Franklin. I don't know if you noticed this, Bostin. I didn't notice it. He says, what do you guys think he's blasting to cause the abnormal and very rapid growth of his cheeks, cheekbones, and the morphing of his overall facial structure into a comic book supervillain? His jawline went from the razor sharp to looking like he has 3 jawbreakers.
I thought that guy put stuff in his face, Leo. I thought he...
Someone actually texted me this separately. They sent me a picture of his face and they were commenting on it. Did his face change?
I think he's putting shit in his face.
It's like he's putting stuff in his face.
I think he's putting like Botox fillers in his face, Leo.
I'm going to go look into it. That's funny. All right. Well, guys, this was really fun. We have to continue doing this every few weeks. But one thing, not people didn't post enough questions this time. I want people to post more questions next time because I love these. I love talking to Ariella and learning. Each time I learn a lot. Anyway, guys, thank you so much. I'll let you be for now. See you next week. Hey, Bostin, who have we got next week?
I'm gonna get a few people. I got some good guests coming up, man. I got some good people that we're gonna get on because we're filming Tuesday again, right? I'll get somebody on.
Ariella, he took a shot of test and his energy just completely changed. He started texting me a lot, like, "Hey, I got a lot of guests." I'm like, "What happened to you? What was this?" All right.
Well, it was dipping down, and now it's finally probably back up. So that makes sense.
Exactly. All right, guys. I'll let you be. Have a great day.
Bye, Leo. You too.
Bye.